5 minutes, I promise you that. But it's kind of crazy. When I've been praying about, when they asked if I would be able to speak, I started praying about what I needed to share. And it's crazy when you said about relationships and stuff, because that's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Drew Starda. I graduated from Cartersville High School in 1999. I came back to I've been in Cartersville for the past 18 years. My dad's a worship pastor at Tabernacle Baptist Church, and that's how God moved us here. But I have a wife. Her name is Lauren. We have a son named Price. He'll be 2 in December. And then we also have another boy on the way in March. His name is going to be Henley. So we're excited about all that. But something that you may be thinking is, what in the world, as a business owner or somebody that's in a business, can I learn from a former high school math teacher and coach? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. I don't know. But what I want to share with you this morning are just 2 things that I have found foundational in me being a teacher, a coach, and now transitioning into my role as youth pastor. But I have a question for you. As you being business people, I want for you to think of just one aspect, one key in your business that makes your business successful. If you could pick just one thing and say, this is what makes our business flourish, what would you pick? What would somebody say that if there's one thing that makes your business flourish, what is it?
Passion.
Passion.
Relationships.
Relationships.
Customer service.
Customer service, which is also relationships. Anything else?
Others.
Others. And you see, the thing is exactly what I have on here, and what Adina talked about is, I'm here to tell you the thing that has been the key to me being the best coach, the best teacher, the best youth pastor, the best husband, the best father that I can possibly be is simply 2 things. One is relationships, but the other thing is prayer. And I want to share with you just a little bit this morning about how relationships has helped me, but also how prayer has been an integral part of that. And you may be thinking, well, in a public school, how can that be an integral part of a public school? Well, let me share you first of all, I came back to CHS for one reason, and it was because of the relationships that I had with the people there. I'm talking about from principals to teachers to secretaries to custodians, the cafeteria ladies. They're my best friends. I wanted some more food, so I knew that I had to get in good with them. But they followed me over from the middle school to the high school, and then when I went back to teach, they're all still there. And it's not only me that came back to Cartersville High School, but they did, in the yearbook a couple years ago, they did a story about something that was pretty cool. There were 12 of us that had graduated from Cartersville High School, from custodians to teachers to principals, that had gone back to Cartersville. You know why we all went back? It was because of relationships that we had. Cartersville is such a cool place to be able to build and develop relationships. You got Miss Granny Marlowe that's been there for 60-something years. She graduated in 47, all the way to Ginger Beer, who graduated in 02. You have state champion cross-country runners. You have baseball state champions that have come back. But it's all been because of relationships. But the thing is that when I got into the teaching profession, I had just one thing in mind, and here's what my goal was each and every day for my students. I wanted my students to come back to my class every day. I wanted them to want to come back to my class every day. That's the thing. And so I had to think in my mind as I began teaching at 21 years old, how in the world am I going to get these students to want to come back to my class every day? They don't like math. That's just one of the gifts that God gave me to be able to teach, just so that I could get into the school system, to be honest with you. But the one thing that I learned real quick is that they didn't want a cool teacher, because I was only a couple years older than some of them. They could see through that real quick. And if you don't know anything about students or teenagers, they know when somebody's being fake and they know when somebody's being real. So I had to get real with them. And that's the one thing that I discovered, is being real and getting down and connecting with them is the one thing that will allow me to be able to build relationships with those kids. And so one thing I started doing on Monday mornings, we started something called, we did journals, we did life journals. And I didn't care. I told them at the beginning of the year, I said this, and I even told it to the parents at open house. I said, one thing in my class is we're going to learn a little bit about math. We're going to learn a lot about life in my class. And that's one thing by the end of the semester, when it always came, that's one thing that we could talk about it, is they knew that their goal was to become a better person from day 1 to day 90, because we just had semesters. They wanted to become a better person. That was my goal for them, was to build those relationships and see that happen. But sometimes on Monday, I would give them a topic, such as, one thing I love to give them is association breeds assimilation, which just simply means who you hang around is who you become. And as ninth graders, they needed to understand that. And throughout the course of the year, they're like, oh my goodness, I kind of see that. But that's what's happened, because I told them, my dad would constantly say, Drew, I can tell who you're hanging around just by your attitude when you come home. I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? He'd be like, that's what I'm talking about right there. How you talking to me? Y'all ever hear that from your parents? I hated it when he said that. But anyways, but for me to connect with them on Monday mornings, we would pick that topic. We would talk about it. Sometimes it would last 10 minutes. Sometimes it would last 30 minutes. There were times when it would last an hour because we got so engrossed in talking about life and how we can do it better and how we can become better people. And then we would take time and just set goals for that week, for academic goals and then for life goals, what we can improve on. But the other thing that I like doing, the Lord laid on my heart, I think it was after Fields of Faith in 2010. He said, Drew, tomorrow when you get back, and Fields of Faith is where we had about 6 teenagers share their story about how Jesus Christ had changed their life and different struggles and things that they had been through. But the Lord told me that night, He said, Drew, when you go to school tomorrow, I want for you to pray for your kids. And I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm a fairly bold person. And but I was like, Lord, public school, not everybody believes in prayer. How do you want me to do that? So here's what I did. I got a booklet of sticky notes, and I gave my students, all my students, a sticky note. And I said, this is completely voluntary, but I want to tell you something. In my life, I've seen how the power of prayer works. And so here's what I want to do with you. I just want for you, you don't have to write your name down on that sticky note, but I just want for you to write down if there is something that I can pray for you about. And I shared with them a story about how I've seen prayer work in my life. And after we did that, I went around to collect, and I have an average of about 30 students in each class. When I collected those, almost every kid had written something down. I'll tell you something, it absolutely broke my heart to see what some of those kids wrote down from being homeless. And you're like, I mean, without them writing their name down, you're like, who in the world is homeless in this class? Because you want to find them, you want to help them out. But it made me have a different perspective on, you talking about my business as a teacher or those students, those are my customers. And it made me have a totally different perspective about how I treated and responded to those kids each and every day, because I knew how I needed to pray for them. And it was amazing how the Lord changed my heart. And knowing what in the world I needed to focus on. It wasn't the math part. It wasn't all these other things that went on. It was about building relationships with those kids. And that is the thing that allowed me to do that. You see, math was just the tool, the gift that God gave me to be able to get into the school system so that I could build relationships with those kids. But prayer was the key for me connecting with those kids. So the other job that I had over there at Cartersville High School was coaching. And to be honest with you, that's the main reason I got into teaching, because when I knew my baseball career was over, I played at Shorter College, which is now Shorter University. Played over there for 4 years. And when I knew my career was over, I was like, how in the world can I just stick with baseball? Well, teaching's about the only way that you can stick with baseball, so I picked math because I liked it. Then obviously, just trying to get over there. But there was one person that really made an impact on me that I wanted to learn from as much as I can, and that's Coach Chester. When you talk about relationships, he texted me this morning, just texted me a verse from the Bible, and it's just something that we continue to stay in contact with. But I had him, over 15 years ago, and the whole sole purpose of me getting back was because I wanted to learn as much as I could from that man. He won 5 state championships in a span of 10 years. And if you asked him today, what was the key to your success in being able to win those 5 state championships, and he'll tell you this, it's not the talent. And there were some talented people that came through Cartersville High School in those span of 10 years. We had Major League Baseball players come through. We just had some normal kids that just played hard and worked hard. But he'll tell you this, the key to building those state championship teams were the relationships that were built in that locker room. That's it. And I'm telling you, if you want to know somebody that is phenomenal at creating an atmosphere like that, Stuart Chester is the best I've ever seen. He is phenomenal at that. He can take 20 guys, and in the span of 4 months, they are a family. And I'm talking about not a family just for those 4 months, but for the rest of their lives. And you should see it. We'll be out of practice, and there are kids that he coached 18 years ago that just stopped by just to say hey. Out of nowhere, they just stopped by because they love that man that much. And there never was a day that went by that after practice or after a game, because Coach Chester was hard on our tails. He wanted us to be the best we could possibly be, so he was hard on us. But there wasn't a day that went by that he didn't tell us that he loved us at the end. I knew that was coming. And we believed it not because of what came out of his mouth, but because of his actions. He made us believe that he loved us, and he does. And that's what continues to build the success over there. And it's not all about state championships. It's about relationships, Coach Chester. The state championships and the region championships and stuff, like me and Mr. George were talking about, it is just icing on the cake right there. But one thing that started last year is we started voluntary Bible study on Sunday afternoons. And so I taught the first few, and then I started opening up to the guys. We had 25 guys on the varsity team last year. And Coach Chester said, right at the beginning of the season, he said, now guys, here's our dilemma. He said, we can have 16 guys. We got about 12 guys. We got 12 guys that are phenomenal baseball players. But then we got about 12, 13 guys that are all the same talent. So do we cut all 12 or 13? Because if you cut one, you got to cut them all. Or do you keep those kids because they're good for the team? And you know what Coach Chester decided? He said, y'all go home, think about it, pray about it, and y'all come and let me know what your answer is the next morning. So we all came back and we're like, you crazy if you keep 25 guys. You know what he did? He kept them all. Because he knew that the character of those kids that he would have cut would have been detrimental. If we didn't keep them, it would have hurt our team. He would rather keep 25 guys because of their character than cut some because they're just not good baseball players. And I thought, as we did that, as I started doing these devotions with the team on Sunday afternoons, I finally gave it over to some of the players, and they did a better job than I could ever dream of because they have a way of connecting with their peers like I don't have. And so as they began to share, it was amazing to see just some of the bond that they connected with. And I'll never forget Kendall Hawkins. He was our ace pitcher last year. He comes in with a scrapbook. And I'm like, Kendall, what's that? He's like, you'll just have to see, Coach. So he starts sharing his devotion, and he opens up his scrapbook, and on one of the pictures is on one of the pages is a huge picture of almost every single kid in that locker room because they had been playing baseball together since they were 10, 11, 12 years old. And at that moment, I got just, I don't even know how long my hairs are on my arm, but they all just kind of popped up everywhere, you know. I just got chills because Kendall got it. It was about relationships. It was about us bonding because of those relationships that we had. And I kind of got that feeling. I was like, by golly, he did such a good job on that devotion. We're winning state this year. We didn't win state, but it was a dang good team. But we loved that team most of all because of the relationships that we had with those kids. But you know what their favorite part was? The devotion was good, but what we would do is we'd break up into pairs, sometimes 3, sometimes 4s, and those kids would pray for each other. That's how they began to develop relationships with each other because they knew what they were struggling with, they knew what they needed to pray for each other about, and it was amazing to see how those kids quit fighting, quit arguing, because when you start praying for somebody, it's kind of hard to be mad at somebody when you're praying for them. And I'll tell you, Coach Chester just does a phenomenal job with that. But you see, once again, baseball was just a tool. A gift that God gave me to be able to build relationships with these kids that will last a lifetime. And now here I am as a youth pastor. And if you ask me about this time last year, because this is about the time last year that somebody asked me, here's how my whole journey began. Somebody asked me, Drew, have you ever thought about doing something besides teaching and coaching? And I was like, heck no. I got my degree in it, I got my master's, I got my 6th year. I'm just going to do it till I'm, after 30 years I'll be done or whatever. And he said, I just want to ask you this. I want you to pray that God will open and shut doors as He sees fit. And I was like, okay. So I went home and told my wife. We started praying about it. And the next week I go into the office. And like I said, it's all about relationships at Cartersville High School. Miss Kellogg, who's been there for 20-something years, she's the principal's secretary. She calls me into her office. I thought I was in trouble. I was like, what the hell do, Miss Kellogg? Because when she speaks, you listen. And she said, close that door. I was like, oh no, what did I do? And she said, Drew, I had a dream about you last night. She said, you were with a large group of students, but it wasn't here at Cartersville High School. And I was like, I'm talking about the hairs on my arms standing up. Because she didn't know what the guy the week before had asked me to pray. And I was like, all right, thanks, Miss Kellogg. I couldn't get out there fast enough. They were like, I don't want her to prophesy anything else on me. But that's how it all began. I went home and told my wife that next day, or that night. And we began praying even harder and harder. We didn't even know what we were praying for. But sure enough, the pastor came to me in January and said, Drew, would you be willing to apply for this job? And I was like, no, sir. I said, I appreciate you asking, but my mission field is at Cartersville High School. That's where the Lord's called me to be. And he said, will you just pray for it for the next 2 weeks? So I prayed for it for the next 2 weeks. Me and my wife both did. And we're finally like, this is what the Lord was asking us to pray for back in October. And so as we began to pray, the Lord gave us zero peace about leaving Cartersville High School. So I called my pastor up and said, Pastor, I said, I appreciate it, but the answer is no. He said, Drew, will you pray for 2 more weeks? And I was like, Pastor, I just prayed for 2 weeks, remember? But okay, I'll pray for 2 more weeks. And me and my wife, we began to pray again, and I called him back 2 weeks later. I said, Pastor, I appreciate you asking, but we don't have a peace about it, so the answer is no. He said, I've got one guy that I need you to talk to. And I was like, all right. So I met with a guy on Sunday afternoon. We talked for about an hour, had a good conversation. At the end of that conversation, you know what the guy asked me to do? Pray one more time. He said, Drew, I just want you to pray one more time. I'm like, listen, brother, I've been praying for the past month, every day. Actually, I've been praying since October, and I have zero peace about it. He said, we pray one more time. I said, I tell you what, I will. So I got down in the same place on Monday morning, said the same prayer on Monday morning, kind of with the, not a flippant attitude, but like, I know, Lord, I know what your answer is, but I'm just going to ask one more time. And when I prayed that morning, immediately, the Lord released me from Cartersville High School. He said, Drew, I appreciate the job that you've done at Cartersville High School, but it's time to move. I have somewhere else that I need you to be. And so I called the pastor. I said, Pastor, I said, you won't believe this. And I said, the Lord's calling me to apply for that job. He said, Drew, I believe it. And so through that process, the Lord led me to First Baptist. And so you may be thinking, well, how does a teacher and a coach translate over that? Well, you know what? I'm still a teacher. I'm teaching them how to have that relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm still a coach. I'm helping coaching them through life. I just have a different playing field, that's all. But the thing is how do I build relationships with this youth group and with the adults? Because I just don't do students. I have a huge team of adults that I'm dealing with as well, and that's my job to connect with them too. And so one thing that I'm having to do is build relationships is I'm having to find ways to find common ground between bringing different schools together, bringing different grades together, because I have high school, middle school, and college, different backgrounds together. But the one way that the Lord's been allowed me to be able to do that is by me just taking interest in what they do, by calling them. I had a kid that had to go, that just went to the hospital one night. I went and sat with him for a little while. But by showing them that I care, but the most important part in building relationships with them is simply by praying for them. And this past week I had a meeting with my adults. And at the very beginning, here's what I told them. I said, you are an integral part of this ministry. And I talked to them about a couch. I said, let's pretend that this student ministry is a couch. I said, if I'm the only one carrying this couch from point A to point B and the rest of you are sitting on top of it, which I'm telling you, my adult team, they don't sit nowhere. They're helping as much as they can. I said, I won't get very far at all. I said, but if I have all of you helping me carry this couch to the destination we know that we're going, we're going to get pretty far pretty quick. I said, but here's the other thing, is we've got about 70 to 80 teenagers that we deal with on a weekly basis. And if we can get all them off the couch and get them helping, because we got some great kids, imagine how far and how quick we can get to our destination. And then the Lord's going to give us another destination to go to after that. But as we talked about that, I said that here's the deal. You've got to know that I care. Here's what I'm going to do. And I'm fine with that, I promise you. But here's what I'm going to do. I need to know how I can pray for you. I need to know. And so I gave them each a note card, and I said, this week I'm committing to pray for you each and every day. And occasionally I'll send them a text just to let them know what I'm praying for and how I'm praying for them. And I've had a couple of them text me back and say, Drew, you won't believe this. The God's already answered that prayer that I put on that card. It's about us being faithful and praying for our customers is what it is. And so here's just some questions real quick as I close. What is your priority as a business person or as a business owner? Is it making money? Is it prestige? Or is it building relationships? Or is it prayer? What is it? Because if you're trying to do business on your own, you won't get very far. Or at least you won't get to the place that you could be if you ask God to help you out through building relationships. And so I want to challenge you to make building relationships and praying not only for your customers but for your business, taking that on a daily basis. I want to encourage you to do that because you have, as humans, we have a vision and a goal that we can see. This is where I want to get, okay? A dot. That's where I want to get. One of the verses that I love in the Bible is Ephesians 3:20. It says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine. Why not why not just ask for something more and imagine than where you think your business is going to go? If you give it over to God and you say, listen, I want you to take our business beyond the walls of wherever it is and help us to reach out and to connect with people in our community through good relationships and through prayer. I promise you will see your business absolutely flourish. And it may not be in a way in human terms like, hey, that's pretty flashy and stuff. It may not be that way because God doesn't tell us that He's going to bless us with possessions and with money and materials and stuff like that. He said, your reward's in heaven, what you do here on earth. So here's how I'm going to close with you. Is I have a note card and I don't have fingernails, so I probably won't be able to get this over. Need mine. Thank you, Matt. If you get those open, I'll send some business you want.
Oh, let me try real hard.
Yeah, I told you. We're just going to stare at you. But here's what I want to do for you as we close. Is I'm just going to give you a note card, just like my students, it's a voluntary thing. If there is absolutely nothing that you need for me to pray for you about, that's completely fine, and you can just leave that card on the table. But if you would like for me to pray for you about something before I even start what's going on today, when I get to work, I'm going to pray for you. Because I believe that God has absolutely blessed Bartow County in a way that other counties have not been blessed. Like y'all opened up in prayer in here and being able to talk about God. And I'm reading that book, It's a Read for God's Sake. And I would encourage you, if you can get your hands on a copy of that, you'll be blown away about what you can do as a leader in this community. Because in business or wherever you are, if you're a husband, if you're a father, if you're a mom, if you're a wife, whoever you are a leader in some way, shape, or form. But I just want to give you a minute or two. You can write your name on it. You don't have to. You can write your business on it. You don't have to. And if there's a way that I can pray for you, I want you to do that. And I'll give you about a minute, and then I just want to pray in closing, and then Dean, I'll turn it back over to you.